I never thought I'd be the kind of woman standing in front of a barn, trying to decide whether to burn it down or sell it. But there I was, 3 months after burying my husband Tom, staring at that old red structure like it had personally wronged me. Maybe it had. Tom spent every spare hour in that barn, more time than he spent with me those last 2 years, if I'm being honest. I'd call him for dinner and find him out there, standing on those worn floorboards, staring at nothing I could see, just thinking, he'd say, that distant look in his eyes. Now he was gone. Massive heart attack at 49, died before the ambulance even arrived, and I was drowning in debt I didn't know we had. The farm was mortgaged to the hilt, medical bills I couldn't pay, credit cards maxed out on things I never bought, and this barn, his obsession, sitting here like a monument to secrets I'd never understand. The realtor said I could get $15,000 for it if I tore it down first. Apparently old barnwood is trendy now. Some city people want it for accent walls. $15,000 wouldn't save me, but it was something. So I made the decision. I'd clear it out, sell what I could, and let them take it apart, board by board. I owed Tom's memory more than that, but I owed the bank actual money. I grabbed my work gloves, my father's old toolbox, and walked across that dusty driveway one last time. The barn door creaked open, and 40 years of marriage, 10 years of widowhood I'd have to survive, and something I couldn't name yet waited inside. I didn't know I was about to find the answer to every question I'd been too afraid to ask. The barn smelled like him. Motor oil, sawdust, and that cherry tobacco he thought I didn't know he smoked. I stood in the doorway, letting my eyes adjust to the dimness, and I swear I could feel him there. Not in a ghost way, but in the way a place holds on to a person. His jacket still hung on the nail by the door. His coffee cup sat on the workbench. Brown ring dried inside. I picked it up and my hands shook. 3 months. It had been 3 months and I still reached for him in bed. Still set 2 plates out. Still caught myself thinking, I need to tell Tom about this. But Tom was gone, and this barn was all I had left of those hours he spent away from me. I started with the easy stuff. Sweeping, organizing tools, folding the old horse blankets we hadn't used since we sold the mare 5 years back. Tom's system was everywhere. He'd labeled everything, organized every bolt and screw, kept inventories in that precise handwriting that made me fall in love with him 40 years ago. Seeing it now made my throat tight. He knew. Somehow he knew he was running out of time, and he'd tried to make it easy for me, or so I thought. I was sorting through boxes of old tack when I noticed it, a worn path in the dust on the floorboards, leading from the door to the back corner. Not just any path, a deliberate track, walked so many times it had compressed the dust into the grain of the wood. I followed it slowly, my heartbeat picking up for reasons I couldn't explain. It ended at what looked like any other section of floor, but when I knelt down and really looked, I saw the edges. One board, slightly cleaner than the others. Edges just a hair more worn, and when I pressed on it, it gave, just slightly, but enough. That's when I knew. Tom hadn't been standing in this barn thinking. He'd been hiding something. My hands were shaking as I ran them along the edges of that board, looking for purchase. It was about 3 feet long, old oak like the rest of the floor, but definitely loose. I grabbed a flathead screwdriver from Tom's perfectly organized toolbox. God, even now his organization was helping me, and worked it into the gap. The board resisted, then gave with a groan that sounded too loud in the silent barn. Dust puffed up, making me cough. I set the board aside and grabbed my flashlight, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The space beneath was about 8 inches deep, running between the floor joists, and it wasn't empty. My flashlight beam caught something wrapped in oilcloth, the kind Tom used to protect his good tools from rust. Next to it, a sealed manila envelope with my name, Rachel, written in his handwriting. My vision blurred with tears I didn't know were coming. I reached down with trembling hands and pulled out the oilcloth package first. It was heavier than I expected, rigid. I unwrapped it carefully, the cloth stiff with age, and found myself holding a document. Yellowed paper, official seals, ornate lettering at the top that read, Land, Deed, and Mineral Rights Agreement. My eyes couldn't focus at first. I had to read it 3 times before the words made sense. Our property, the 63 acres Tom's grandfather had bought in 1923, wasn't just farmland. According to this deed, last surveyed and assessed in 2018, it sat on top of a massive mineral deposit, rare earth minerals, the kind used in electronics and batteries. The assessed value, updated just 2 years before Tom died, was listed at the bottom, $47 million. I dropped the document. Actually dropped it, my hands just stopped working. 47 million. We were broke. We were losing everything. And buried under our barn floor was a deed worth $47 million. I don't know how long I sat there on that dusty barn floor, staring at the paper in my hands. The numbers didn't change no matter how many times I blinked. $47 million. I picked up the envelope with my name on it, my fingers leaving prints in the dust. Inside, a letter in Tom's handwriting dated 3 years ago. Rachel, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you found what I couldn't tell you about. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you every single day, but I was trying to protect you. In 2018, a surveying company came through doing mineral assessments. They found the deposit under our land and filed it with the county. I got the notice and had our property assessed. That's what this deed represents. The day after I got this document, people started showing up. Developers, mining companies, men in expensive suits making offers. Then came the threats. Someone broke into the barn, tore apart the house while we were in town. Remember that, Rach? We thought it was random. It wasn't. They wanted this deed. They wanted me to sell cheap before I understood what we had. Or they wanted me gone so they could claim it was abandoned property. I couldn't let them hurt you, so I hid it and pretended it didn't exist. I mortgaged everything, took out loans, made it look like we were desperate and worthless. I made them think there was nothing here to find. I was going to tell you when it was safe. I swear I was. If you have this letter, I ran out of time. I'm so sorry I left you with the mess, but baby, you have to be careful. Someone out there still wants this. Don't trust anyone who... The letter ended there. Not with the signature, just stopped mid-sentence, like he'd been interrupted, or like his heart had given out while he was writing it. I looked up at the empty barn, and for the first time since Tom died, I felt something other than grief. I felt terror. I shoved everything back under the floorboard and replaced it, my hands moving on instinct while my mind raced. Tom had hidden $47 million to protect me. He'd let us go into debt, let me think we were failing, all to keep me safe from people who'd threatened us. The break-in. God, the break-in. I remembered it now. 3 years ago. Came home from grocery shopping to find the house ransacked, the barn torn apart, nothing stolen but everything searched. Tom had been so calm about it, called the sheriff, filed a report, never acted scared, but he'd started spending more time in the barn after that, building new shelves, reorganizing, he'd said. He'd been reinforcing his hiding place. I sat there in the dust, my mind spinning. We had $47 million under my barn floor, and Tom died thinking he was protecting me by hiding it. But from who? And were they still out there? I pulled out my phone to call. Who? The sheriff? A lawyer? My sister in Colorado? As I scrolled through contacts, I heard it. The crunch of tires on gravel. Someone was here. I moved to the barn door and looked out carefully. A black SUV, expensive, sat in my driveway. A man was getting out, mid-50s, dressed too well for a farm visit, pressed khakis, button-down shirt, aviator sunglasses. He looked around my property like he was assessing it, then started walking toward the house. I didn't recognize him, didn't recognize the vehicle, and every instinct Tom had tried to protect me with started screaming. This man wasn't here to offer condolences. He was here for what was under my barn floor, and somehow, 3 months after Tom died, he knew I'd found it. I stepped out of the barn, trying to look casual, like I'd just been cleaning. The man saw me and changed direction, walking toward me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Morrison? Rachel Morrison? His voice was smooth, practiced. I'm sorry to intrude. My name is Robert Hendricks. I'm with Apex Development Group. He extended his hand. I didn't take it. We're not selling, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. The property isn't for sale. His smile widened. I understand you've had a difficult few months. Your husband's passing, the financial troubles. I want to help. He pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. We're prepared to offer $800,000 for your property. Cash. You could be out of debt by next week. $800,000. 3 months ago, that would have been a miracle. Now, knowing what was really under this land, it was an insult. It was also proof that Tom was right, that someone was watching, waiting. How did you know I was having financial troubles? I asked carefully. His smile slipped just slightly. Rural communities, people talk. I heard about your situation and thought we could help each other. Get off my property. The words came out harder than I intended. Mrs. Morrison, I don't think you understand. I understand perfectly. You're offering me less than 1% of what this land is worth, hoping I'm desperate enough to take it. I'm not. His expression changed completely. The fake sympathy vanished, replaced by something cold. You found it then. The deed. Your husband was smarter than I gave him credit for. My blood ran ice cold. He knew. He knew about the deed. Knew Tom had hidden it.
How long had they been watching us? Leave. Now. Mrs. Morrison, you need to think carefully about this. He stepped closer, and I held my ground even though my heart was pounding. Your husband understood the situation. He knew what happened to people who don't cooperate. His death was convenient timing, wasn't it? The implication hit me like a fist. Are you saying? I'm saying accidents happen. Heart attacks happen. Especially to men under stress.
He pulled out a business card and held it out. You have 48 hours to accept our offer. After that, things get complicated. He walked back to his SUV and I stood there shaking, his card in my hand. As he drove away, I looked down at it. No company name, just a phone number. And written on the back in pen, your husband made the wrong choice. Don't make the same mistake. I waited until his SUV disappeared down the road before my knees gave out. I sat right there in the gravel driveway, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Tom. They'd killed Tom. That massive heart attack at 49. Tom who ate right, exercised, had a physical every year. Tom who'd hidden a $47 million secret and had the misfortune of a heart attack 3 months before I found it. That wasn't coincidence. That was murder. I looked at the card in my hand, then crumpled it and threw it as hard as I could. It barely made it 3 feet. I was alone. Tom was gone. And men who'd killed my husband were giving me 48 hours to sell them land worth $47 million for less than $1 million. I could go to the sheriff, tell him everything. But what did I have? A land deed that had been hidden, Tom's unfinished letter about threats, and a visiting businessman who'd implied things without actually confessing to murder. Plus, this was rural county. How deep did Apex Development's influence go? If they could get to Tom, if they could threaten us for 3 years without law enforcement noticing, who could I trust? I needed help. Real help. I pulled out my phone and called the one person I knew I could trust. My late mother's lawyer, Jim Chen. He'd handled her estate, helped us with farm paperwork, been practicing law in the city for 30 years. If anyone could help me navigate this, it was Jim. Rachel? His voice was surprised. Is everything okay? Jim, I need you to come to the farm. I can't explain on the phone, but I found something and people are threatening me and I took a shaky breath. I think they killed Tom. There was a pause. I'm an hour away. Don't talk to anyone. Don't sign anything. Lock your doors. I'm coming now. He hung up. I looked at the barn, at the house, at the 63 acres surrounding me that had suddenly become worth dying over. Tom had tried to protect me by hiding the truth, but the truth had been found. And now I had a choice. Run, hide, and lose everything, or fight. I thought about Tom's letter, about how he'd mortgaged our lives to keep me safe, about how he'd died still protecting me, and I felt something shift inside me, grief hardening into something sharper, anger, determination. They'd taken my husband. They wouldn't take my land. I stood up, brushed off my jeans, and walked back into that barn. I had 48 hours to figure out how to fight $47 million corruption, and I was going to start by reading every word of that deed. Jim arrived exactly 1 hour later, carrying a briefcase and wearing the serious expression that meant he was in lawyer mode. I'd made coffee, terrible, bitter coffee because my hands were still shaking, and spread everything out on the kitchen table. The deed, Tom's letter, the business card, the foreclosure notice, all of it. Jim read in silence for 20 minutes, his expression getting darker with each page. Finally, he sat back and removed his glasses. Rachel, this is extraordinary and extremely dangerous. Tell me what I can do. Legally, this deed is solid. The mineral rights assessment is documented with the county. You own this outright. But, he tapped Tom's letter. These threats, the timing of Tom's death, this Hendricks character, we're talking about organized corruption, possibly involving county officials, definitely involving people with resources. So I should sell? The words tasted like ash. No, he leaned forward. You should go public. Immediately. File this deed officially. Hold a press conference. Make it impossible for them to make you disappear quietly. The only reason they've used threats instead of lawyers is because they don't want attention on this property. We give them attention. We take away their power. And if they already own the sheriff, the county assessor, then we go over their heads. State level, federal if we have to. Rachel, a $47 million mineral deposit on family farmland? That's a national story. That's David versus Goliath, widow fighting corrupt developers. Media will eat this up. And once it's public, you're safer. Or I have a target on my back. You already do. Tom's letter proves that. The only question is whether you fight in the shadows, where they have all the power, or in the light, where they have to play by rules. I thought about Tom, about those hours in the barn, about the weight he'd carried alone, about his heart giving out under the stress of protecting me from something I hadn't even known existed. How fast can you do it? Jim smiled. I can have the deed filed by end of business today. Press conference tomorrow morning. By tomorrow afternoon, every news outlet in 3 states will be covering this. They gave me 48 hours. Then we'll respond in 24. He started gathering papers. Pack a bag. You're staying at my place in the city tonight. Once we file this, they'll probably try one more intimidation play before the story breaks. I'm not leaving my land. Rachel, this is my home. Tom died for this. I'm not running. Jim looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Then I'm staying here. And I'm bringing my brother. He's a retired Marine, built like a tank. If anyone shows up tonight, they'll have to go through both of us. For the first time since Tom died, I felt something like hope. Maybe I was fighting a system designed to crush people like me. Maybe I was risking everything on a gamble. But I wasn't alone anymore, and I wasn't backing down. Let's do it. The next morning, I stood in front of Jim's arranged press conference, a modest gathering of local reporters in the county courthouse, and told my story. The hidden deed, Tom's suspicious death, the threats, Hendrix's visit, and his 48-hour ultimatum. I spoke about being a widow fighting to keep my family's farm, about corruption and intimidation, about land worth millions being targeted by developers who thought they could scare an old woman into selling. By noon, the story was everywhere. Local news, state news, 3 different news websites. Widow discovers hidden fortune, fights corrupt developers. Read one headline. $47 million land, grab exposed. Read another. My phone exploded with calls. Reporters, lawyers offering help, environmental groups wanting to protect the land, even a film producer asking about rights to my story. Jim fielded everything, his brother Mike standing guard at my house like the Marine he'd been. And then, at 3 p.m., Hendrix called. "You made a mistake, Mrs. Morrison." His voice was ice. "No," I said, surprised by my own calm. "You did. 3 years ago, when you threatened my husband instead of making a fair offer. Yesterday, when you implied you'd killed him. And every day you've spent thinking I'd be too scared or too stupid to fight back. This isn't over." "Yes, it is. Your company's under investigation. The county assessor who undervalued my property is being questioned. The sheriff you probably thought you owned is answering to state police now. You threatened the wrong widow." I hung up. Jim was grinning. Apex Development Group just released a statement claiming they had no knowledge of any threats and are cooperating fully with investigations. Translation: they're distancing themselves from Hendrix as fast as possible. "And Tom?" My voice broke slightly. "Will we ever prove they killed him? I've already asked the state to exhume and re-examine. If there was foul play, we'll find it." He put a hand on my shoulder. "Tom spent 3 years protecting you. Now you're protecting his legacy. I think he'd be proud." That night, I sat alone in the barn for the first time since finding the deed. The floorboard was still loose. I hadn't replaced it properly. I could see the edge of the compartment where Tom had hidden his secret. I pulled out his letter and read it again, tears streaming down my face this time. "I'm so sorry I left you with the mess. But baby, you have to be careful." I was careful, I whispered to the empty barn. I was careful, and I fought, and I won, for both of us. The farm was safe, the deed was filed, the threats were exposed. Tom's death would be investigated, and I was still here, still standing, on land that had been in his family for over 100 years, $47 million. It seemed impossible, but you know what was more impossible? Thinking I'd give up without a fight. 6 months later, I stood in that same barn, but everything was different. The worn floorboards were still there. I'd kept them, kept the compartment, kept the hiding place as a reminder. But the barn was clean now, organized, transformed into something new. In the end, I didn't sell the mineral rights to developers. Instead, I worked with Jim and environmental lawyers to establish a conservation trust. The land would be protected, the minerals extracted responsibly by a company that had to meet strict environmental standards, and the profits would fund rural education and family farm preservation. I got enough money to pay off every debt, fix up the house, and secure my future. The rest went to causes Tom would have approved of. Hendricks went to prison. Not for Tom's death. They couldn't prove it definitively, though the exhumation found irregular toxicology that warranted further investigation, but for bribery, fraud, and conspiracy charges related to his land-grabbing operation across 3 counties. Apex Development folded. The corrupt county assessor resigned, and Tom's death became part of a larger story about standing up to powerful people who think they can take what isn't theirs. I kept the farm. Of course I kept the farm. But more than that, I transformed it. Part of the barn became a small museum about family farms and rural preservation. Tom's tools stayed right where he'd organized them, with plaques explaining his story. Visitors came, school groups, families, people interested in agricultural history. The land he'd died protecting became a place where people learned why protecting land matters. I gave talks at universities about standing up to corruption, testified before the state legislature about rural land rights, became, somewhat to my surprise, a minor celebrity in agricultural and environmental circles. The widow who wouldn't back down, one magazine called me. I preferred to think of myself as the woman who finished what her husband started. Some nights I still came out to the barn and sat where I'd found that deed. Sometimes I talked to Tom, told him about my day, about the tour groups, about the good his secret was doing now. Sometimes I just sat in silence, feeling his presence in the smell of sawdust and motor oil. "You protected me," I'd whisper. "Now I'm protecting what you loved." The land is still here, the barn is still standing, and somewhere under these floorboards, that hiding place remains, empty now, its secret revealed, its purpose served. Tom spent 3 years hiding a fortune to keep me safe. I spent 6 months fighting to honor that sacrifice by making sure his death meant something. $47 million changed my life, but finding it, fighting for it, and choosing what to do with it, that transformed me, from widow to warrior, from victim to victor, from someone things happened to someone who made things happen. I learned that some things are worth more than money. That land isn't just property, it's legacy. That standing up to people who think they can intimidate you is sometimes the only option. And that sometimes the greatest gift someone can leave you isn't what they give you, but the strength you discover in yourself when you fight for what they believed in. Tom's gone, but his farm is still here. His legacy is protected, and I'm still standing on land worth millions, in a barn that holds secrets no more. Sometimes the greatest treasure isn't what you find hidden, it's what you find in yourself when you fight to protect it. And that, I learned, is priceless.